Nice to see you guys.
We have a good group today. We're going to go ahead and get started in about 2 minutes, everyone. This is the webinar, How to Be Super Productive in the Remote Working Era. Hopefully you're in the right place. This is like a first day of college class where your professor would announce, this is Business 101. If you are in the right class, this is where you should be. Anyone else missing out on opening day today? I'm actually not a huge baseball guy, but opening day and like World Series, I kind of get into a little bit.
Wow.
Huge Yankee fan growing up here. I was born in Buffalo. I can still remember listening to the games on the radio when Phil Rizzuto and I think it was Frank White, but my goodness, I can hear the holy cow from that was way back in the 1970s. So we're talking
that just makes me think of the Seinfeld episode where they have that toy that gets locked on the asphalt or something, and when they run over it, it says "Does the holy cow?"
Yeah.
A little bit of a pop reference there, but yeah, that's funny. Okay, we've got a good group jumping in. I think we're going to go ahead and get started. So this is how to be super productive in the remote working era. We actually started planning this webinar, initially talked to John about it back in like January, and then we brought Jason in. So pretty timely, obviously, with the craziness going on. But I want to take a minute to kind of take everyone through the agenda. So we'll do some quick intros. Then we'll run through kind of the meat of the content with some tips and tricks on being productive while remote. We'll review some takeaways, and then we'll have some time for some Q&A at the end. Hopefully this is all valuable. You know, we're all kind of adjusting to remote life, which is, or I should say quarantine life, which is a little different than remote life. But these things, you know, that we'll go through today can hopefully be a little helpful. So who you have here is myself, Joe Martin. I'm the head of marketing at Cloud App, and I'm going to be kind of moderating the group here. We have John Rampton. John, you want to give a quick kind of background on yourself?
Yeah. Hey, everybody. My name is John Rampton. I am the founder and CEO of calendar.com. We are a productivity app, helps you be more productive with the time that you have, help you easily schedule meetings, give you analytics on how you're spending your time, and overall just an entrepreneur, very similar to probably a lot of you watching, and I want to be more productive in my everyday life.
Very cool. Known John for a while, so excited to do this with him on. Jason just met recently, but is a remote, been growing a pretty cool remote empire recently. Jason, you want to give us a little background on yourself?
Yeah, welcome to everybody. Appreciate you joining. I spent about 12 years in an outsourced sales company up until last March, where I built a very large and successful inside and lead gen team. And then I said, you know what, I need to do something differently. So I started a company called Remote Sales, which has both the consulting as well as an inside sales operation for small and mid-sized companies. And then a couple of months after that, I started Remote Online because the demand to work remotely is just through the roof. And of course, in the last 30 days, we've actually signed up more people than the last 12 months combined. So thrilled to be here. If anybody needs a remote job, we've got thousands of them at remoteonline.com.
It's awesome. Love it. Yeah, we've seen insane growth here at Cloud App. And it's been kind of a wild couple of weeks. So excited to dig into kind of the meat here. Thanks to you both for joining. So I wanted to talk first about the impact of distraction and how to avoid it. So let's start with you, John. What are some things that you've been able to do, either working remotely yourself, leading a remote team, or having a productivity app like leading calendar.com that you've been able to do that have really helped you to find ways to avoid distraction?
Things that I have really, probably my biggest thing to avoid distraction is one, I'm just noticing I did not lock my door. That's probably number one, is locking a door. Number two is headphones. I have this, and I have a pair of big headphones that somebody has, or I probably left upstairs because I was using them. Sometimes walk around. But my family knows when I have my big headphones on, or when I have my headphones on, that like I am in the zone and I'm not there. I think my biggest distractions, I always call it the justas. There's a lot of justa when you're working from home. I call them, hey babe, can you help me out with this for just a second? Hey, just a second here, and I call them justa moments. So those kind of avoid a lot of the justa moments. Like, you're not going to avoid them. You're not going to do that. But, there's a lot of distractions out there, and those are some of the best things that have helped me.
Very cool. I like that. Yeah, there's been definitely a lot of justas. And some of those justas are not questions. Like, if I hear 3 children screaming at my wife downstairs while I'm kind of working remote, that's kind of like, I should probably help and step in. So some of those things are a little more proactive. Jason, what do you think? What are some things that you've been able to do to avoid distraction and really make sure that you're productive during your time, either working remote, and then also secondarily, like managing a remote team? How do you kind of keep them on task?
Yeah, such a great question. I think it's important for everybody to just think about this for a second. Whether you're, as I am, working from my house. I don't have kids. I've got nieces and nephews, and they're grown now. But your routine should not be much different than it is when you go to the office. In other words, you got to get up in the morning. You got to take a shower. You got to get dressed. I'd highly recommend that you get dressed in such a way that you're comfortable, whether that's t-shirt and jeans, or I know some people that go to Starbucks and they wear a blazer or a suit because that's how they feel successful and prosperous as they, freelance. And then you got to make sure to turn off the TV. So when you're getting into your routine in the morning, you've showered, you've dressed, you got a cup of coffee, maybe you have breakfast, turn off the TV, mute your phone unless it's an absolute necessity. And then you got to get into your routine. For remote sales reps like myself, you're probably logging into LinkedIn. You're either in Navigator or you're in your CRM like a Salesforce. And then it's time to start making calls, which, by the way, is the best time to make calls in at least 10 or 15 years right now, because all the decision makers are home. Nobody's got any money, but they're certainly willing to talk to you right now. So if you're in sales as I am, get yourself into a similar routine as you do in the office and start reaching out to people, because right now during this lockdown is when they're most receptive.
I love that. I love the routine is a really good point. I think it's, today, like this morning, I posted a tweet that just said, today is Thursday. And I know I've seen people like doing that throughout the last 2 weeks, like, hey, what day is it? Jokingly, but it really can like mesh together, especially if you're like, may feel like you have less motivation because you're just at home. But if you stick to your routine, I love to get dressed and ready for the day. First, some people may want to do a little bit of work and then get dressed and ready. But having that routine, having that kind of like point where your brain knows exactly what's going to happen is really, really valuable.
Yeah, and just real quick on that point, what folks are going to realize, I've worked at home many, many years on and off, for the last 3 decades, is all the distractions that you get from the office, somebody knocking on your door, a ridiculous meeting that doesn't need to happen gets, called at the last minute. All that goes away. So you eventually, in a very short period of time, you get into a routine. So you know what you're going to do when you get up, whether or not you're going to have breakfast, probably what you're going to have. And then you sit down at your desk, you've got that all situated. A lot of folks watching right now, they're in a queue or they're in an open environment. Maybe you don't like that. I didn't like that. When I can get rather loud if you can't I tell. So if there's somebody next to me that's talking as loud as I am, it's too distracting. So what you're going to discover at the house is nobody's there. Now, if you got kids, like John does, that's a bit of a challenge. But you're going to get, as the studies say, 22% more productive, because a lot of the water cooler stuff, that goes away. The commute, of course, that goes away. The last minute ridiculous meetings that too many companies have, that goes away. So within a fairly short period of time, and you're hearing a lot of people talk about it now, you can get into a routine where you're kicking some ass, even in the midst of chaos like we're experiencing now.
Yeah, I think that's, really, really great point. The meeting thing as an example, like just going from Adobe to Cloud App, I feel like I suddenly had like 4 more hours in my day that I was like, okay, what am I going to do with this time? Like I've normally been in a meeting, like talking about strategy or whatever, and now I have like all this great time. How do I fill it?
So I pulled a little bit of data. I mean, we have, millions of customers at Calendar where we can extrapolate a little bit of data. The average person right now has 43% less meetings than they did a month ago.
Ooh, I love that.
43% and 2.5 hours more time on their schedule than they did literally 30 days ago.
So let's touch on, like, before we move on to kind of the next topic, which I think is going to be a good segue. How do you kind of use that for like deep work? Background of deep work, it's kind of like I'd call it like a sexy phrase right now. A lot of people are using it. It's where you really block out time in your day to really focus on one task. So it's like, I really need to plan this editorial calendar for marketing for Q3. And so I need, 2 hours each day for the next 6 days to be able to get that done. How do you kind of use that, additional time to focus on deep work, John?
For me, I block out time. So, and I've done that since before, COVID, and I do it right now. I block out time. I find that my best time and my most productive time is in the mornings. I feel it's very, very different for every single person. Some people are better in the afternoon. Some people are better midday. Some people just want to crush their workout in the very beginning of the day. That's me. So I have a very set routine schedule every single day where I do this. I wake up, I do this, I do this, I do this. Then I start work and I have dedicated work time. I feel dedicated work time is so important to you, and find when works for you. The morning is not, like for my wife, the morning would not work at all. She is not productive in the morning. Like she puts everything off in the morning. But she's one of the most productive people in the world in the afternoon. So find what works. I find as well, sometimes I always find excuses at the end of the day for not doing things, but at the beginning of the day, I can tackle it. I also find like blocking off, we have company days and where there are no meeting days. So for example, every Thursday today is a no meeting day. We do not allow meetings on certain days of the week. And we do this so that every person we know is like dedicated towards certain things, whether it be working, whether it be like a podcast, whether it be this. There's no meetings on certain days. So it allows our company and, myself to focus a lot more.
Let's, with that kind of point, let's just move to the next topic and expand on that a little bit. I love calendar blocking, the idea of it. I definitely started it a lot at Adobe. It wasn't necessarily always respected. But I always had like blocks for gym time and blocks for lunch. And for the most part, 90% of the time, that block gave me the time that I needed to take a break, make sure that I was productive throughout the day. And, I was talking with Nir Eyal, who you know as well, John, on our podcast that Cloud App has about 6 months ago. And he put out a whole book basically on calendar blocking, right? And he says he even goes as granular as family time. Like he's blocking out, he has on his calendar, 30 minutes with one of his kids and, you know, date with wife on Friday night, which is like, you know, 3 hours or whatever. So he's getting, you know, like the sensei of calendar blocking, but makes some really good points about its validity.
I think as well, some people need that.
Yep.
Like some people need that granularity of like, I'm blocking out time for this. I'm blocking out time for my partner. I'm blocking out time for, you know, all these different activities in my life. And they need those in there because we all find things to go over them if something isn't in there. So I think that some people need that. Now, you know, blocking out individual time sprints for each one of your kids might not work for everyone. Like for me, I don't know if that would work. But I do block out like family time. I don't want to go to my kid and be like, sorry, your 30 minutes is over.
Yeah, totally.
I'm moving on to Karen. So, you know.
Our time's up, yeah.
Sorry, I know we're in the middle of a thought, but it is 6:31. You've already taken a minute more of some. Like
Legos were really fun, but I got to go do this thing.
Yeah, or
if I could make a quick point about,
please,
to all my sales folks out there. We've all been through the, you know, cold calling block, where we're all going to get on the phone right now and we're going to make cold calls from 11 to noon, and they're going to order in pizza and we're all going to have a good time. I've talked about this a lot lately, that we now live in a multi-channel world. So it's about email, it's about phone, which is red hot right now. It's about social media, both engagement and content creation. Texting is taking off. You got events, you've got direct mail that's actually making a comeback. So in terms of blocking, what I would do is I'd block out an hour for the calls, an hour for the social, an hour for the emails, maybe an hour for training and kibitzing with colleagues, so that, you know, in an 8-hour day, you've got your lunch, you've got your calls, you've got your emails, you've got your social, you've got your meetings and or your trading. And then you've got to have an extra hour of leeway because shit's going to hit the fan, especially now, right?
Yeah.
Shit's hitting the fan. COVID's been a nightmare in so many respects, but at the same time, it's testing everybody's mettle. And again, I'll say it one more time. If you get on the phone right now, every decision maker's home. They don't have budget right now. Nobody's got budget for the most part for at least another month or so, but they're willing to talk. There's people that are having hour-long conversations that would normally be a 10-minute discovery call because, you know, what else have I got to do? My wife's in the other room. My kids are driving me nuts, but I still got problems that I need to solve.
You got to think like all these people are going from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting, or even more like decision makers and stuff, from conference to conference to conference.
Oh, yeah.
Every single one of those is canceled. I would even say like a lot of people do have budgets. They're just not spending those budgets.
Yeah.
But if you're like top of mind for those conversations and you're there and you're having that, I feel it's one of like a really, really good time to get in touch with people. I've been having actual really meaningful conversations. I'll give everybody that's listening a text that I've been sending out and an email that I've been sending out. Don't template this because I customize it to everything. But I've been sending a short note to every single person. And I'm just like, hey, how are you doing on a scale of 1 to 10? No bullshit or bull crap.
Yeah.
Like I've been sending that to people, and it is amazing how many responses I've gotten that are like 3s, 4s, 5s, and it opens up real conversations. And I feel like even though they're kind of my sales pipeline that I've been like building and navigating, I'm actually getting to more of the relationship. And I feel most like in sales, I mean, Jason, you know this better than anybody. Like if you have that emotional relationship and an actual relationship, you're like much further down the sales pipeline. You're not going to sell anything, or they won't remain a long-term client of yours if you don't actually build a relationship. So this just gets you so much further down the road.
Yeah. To John's point right there, you just take a typical decision maker. Let's say that he or she had 10 burning platforms, 10 problems before this virus showed up. Well, whatever problem they had for the most part has been amplified 1,000-fold.
Yeah.
So it's all about right now, who's got the guts to face the fear? Everybody's concerned, especially if you've got children or elderly parents. Who's going to face their fear, as I had to in 9/11 when I was on Wall Street as a broker? I told a story in a video the other day where I actually did 3 shots of whiskey so I could get on the phone and handle the madness because my book had been cut in half.
Yeah.
So I've done a lot of videos. I did one yesterday called Cold Calling in Corona. It's closing in on 50,000 views because it outlines a script that, and I hate the word script, but you guys know what I'm talking about, where if you'll just get on the phone, I'm not talking about email. Save that for later. Get on the phone and reach out to people and say, hey, crazy world that we live in, and I use the term under normal circumstances, this is the problem that I solve. So they're not going to be writing you checks now, but to John's point, when the dust settles, and it will, they're going to remember this time. Yeah. Who reached out to me? I've got 10 problems I had. Who of those 10 had the guts to call me? Well, John, maybe Jason, and 2 or 3 other folks. Guess who's going to get the check in a month or 2 when it settles down? You are.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think definitely a big chunk of, calendar blocking at the moment should be connecting with existing customers, obviously to prevent churn, but build that relationship, doing cold call outreach, like you mentioned, and connecting, prospective customers and creating that relationship. Because we're all very empathetic to John's point of kind of all being in this same situation, which has really never happened before.
Yeah, and Jason, I know I would love to watch that video and hear what you had to say. So if before the end of this video, if you could drop it in for all our panelists and attendees, just a link to that video, that would be awesome. That way every person could see it, because I need that. I think every person reading this needs that.
Absolutely.
Cool. And if anyone has questions along the way, feel free to drop them in the chat. We're saving those for the end, but we'll try to get as many questions as we can to help. So as far as I like Jason's point of with calendar blocking of, I'll point to social, right? That was one of the things you said of scheduling time for social. And I know Nir Eyal had mentioned the same thing. Especially right now, social is a great way to keep up with the news and kind of see how your connections are doing with everything. So blocking out time for that. What are some other, things you've been able to do, not just during this time, but previously to break out, have productivity breaks, let your mind, relax for a minute? Let's start with Jason and then we'll go to John.
Yeah, I just put the link to the video in the chat for anybody
Awesome.
who wants it.
Thank you.
I'm at the house right now, and behind me, you can't see it, I've got a beautiful patio. The sun is shining. It's almost 80 degrees in Atlanta. I'm a huge coffee fan. I don't know if we got some coffee drinkers out there, but I'm a bulletproof guy. Kerrygold butter. I throw in a little cocoa powder, some sea salt,
yes,
vanilla extract, and sometimes I'll even crack a little bit of pepper. And if I want to sweeten it, I'll use maybe a half a teaspoon of organic maple syrup. So at least, definitely in the morning, and usually around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I'll go outside and I'll soak up some sun. I'll listen to the birds. I got a wacky dog next door that keeps me occupied. So whether you're, taking a coffee or a tea break, some people like to meditate. It's very hard for me to meditate. I've got some friends that are trying to help me with that. But, you got to take at least 2 or 3 times out of the day, to reset yourself. And, that's how I do it. Awesome.
Love that. Yeah. And I think a big key to that before we get over to John is really just finding out what works for you. Certainly you should always be thinking about new things like you with meditation, but, your meditation could be sitting on the porch and relaxing with, your cup of coffee versus someone else is actually deep breathing and listening to, Enya or something to get their meditation on. John, what's something you've been able to do to kind of take a productivity break and take a breath and get ready for the next segment of your day?
Yeah, one thing that's really important for me is segmenting where I'm at. So when I need to take a break, I leave my work zone. So I leave the office and I go to a different room. And that for me is so important to switch off my brain from this mode to that mode. And I feel so many people a lot of people work from the kitchen or do this. If you're in the kitchen, walk outside. and don't eat in the kitchen. Or if you're here, go to a different bedroom and then turn on the TV for a minute. But it's compartmentalizing your life. And if you're in a studio apartment, literally go outside and eat in the stairs, or do something to actually coordinate. Your brain needs something different and to snap you out of that. So that's been one of my big ones. Another big one, I mean, kudos to my team for doing this, because this was not my idea, but we have been doing like team fun activities. Like we did a happy hour last Friday as a team all over Zoom, where we had one person go deliver drinks, and they went and bought like a case of something, and they went and delivered it to a bunch of people. They were an essential worker, or their husband was. We're taking advantage of the system. But they went and delivered it to everybody, and all the remote people, like, I mean, a lot of them were just drinking Diet Coke because they're not drinkers, and they were drinking this. But having that, another thing that we did that was like one of the funnest activities that everybody thought was stupid until they did it, was we did a scavenger hunt the other day. And like, it was 10 minutes. It was just a quick 10-minute list. We put a list together of like random things. Like one of them was like, you had to find a unicorn. The other one was a birthday candle. The other one was like an old sock with a hole in it. And like, I mean, that was one of the funnest things. And then we have rewards, and we're just like, the rewards are, like on Amazon, and we went and bought a $10 gift and we mailed it to the person. Like, we've been doing fun things like that. And those are really good breaks where we're bonding as a team. We're being there and we're making fun. And like, not saying we should make fun of each other, but like in a sales atmosphere, you're making fun of each other all the time and joking around and, having a lot more of the attitude like, hey, we're friends, we're this. Like, it was a lot more of that going on, which I feel we need. And like, so that's been one of my biggest things, is going on with the team, doing a scavenger hunt, doing a virtual this, doing a virtual that. Yeah.
Cool.
To John's point real quick, those Zoom happy hours are huge right now.
Yeah, they're huge.
Just down the street from me, my buddy Morgan Igbrun, I think he's got one today again. He had one the other day. There was 50 to 100 people on there. They're doing it over in the UK. A friend of mine, Sam Dunning, who I did a podcast with. If you need SEO help, by the way, he's the guy to talk to. So you get, 50 to 100 people on a Zoom, and some of them are outrageously, insane in terms of the amount of fun they're having. They're drinking beer, they're drinking wine, they're kibitzing about, the horrors of COVID. And the strangest thing is happening right now, and most people are starting to figure this out, is the world's coming together. We're not drifting apart. We've got prospects that are talking to sales reps who are most hated in any industry for up to an hour long. And what are they talking about? It's not just the problem, the business problem. How's your family doing? Hey, John, you've got kids in the other room. Are they okay? You got any elderly parents that are, in need of help? So the world is coming together, and this virus, once it goes away, we're never going to be the same. And I think it's going to be, in many ways, a huge blessing in disguise.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. It is kind of like, it's been cool to see like the virtual renaissance. Like, that scavenger hunt is a hilarious idea, John. I love that. And we'll probably
You guys should try it. It literally brought us together. I've also in the mornings been doing with this group, like a fitness one. They closed all their gyms, so they did this fitness thing. They had 2,100 people live on a yoga session this morning. Like yoga session, 2,100 people for something that was not existent 10 days ago.
Right.
He started the group literally 10 days ago, and now there's like 100,000 people on there, but 2,000 people were live. So yeah, you're right. It will never be the same.
Nope.
Yeah, it's been pretty crazy. Like my wife's been a part of those, like her local gym that she goes to has been doing live classes. And like my son's preschool teacher read like bedtime story to the kids, over Facebook Live. And my son like had a couple of hangouts with his friends, like talking about Bakugans or whatever, whatever 7-year-old boys talk about. But yeah, it's been really interesting to kind of see that come together. So I think productivity breaks are definitely a key piece of staying sane in all of this, being strong while you're remote, relying on your calendar blocking if you need that element of structure, and having that opportunity. What are some tools, other playbooks that have been really helpful to you in managing, what's going on, and helping automate things that you've been working on? We'll start with John this time.
I mean, helping automate, a lot of it we're doing before, like we're still using Zoom. We've been using things like Panda Docs to send documents, so they're e-signed, Cloud App to record things, easily send things. Obviously, I have to throw calendar.com out for scheduling meetings, stuff like that, but that's self-promotional, so take it for what it is, guys. Slack has always, it's been part of our workforce for years. So, Slack is a very, very important thing. Google Docs is surprisingly, we hadn't used it as much before for collaboration as a team and like putting things together and writing things. Because most of the time you're in the office, you can go over to people or you write an email, but it's turned a lot more collaborative. Like, hey, let's jump on a video chat and we're FaceTiming each other and we're collaborating on the Google Doc at the exact same time. That has never happened with us before. There's also a lot of you're starting to find the Google Hangouts, the Slacks, they're all enabling, and the Zooms are mostly all enabling their free premium tools. They're premium tools for free, and a lot of them are giving these things away. So those are some of our biggest ones that we use right now.
Cool. I think it's important to recognize tools that can be helpful. There's actually a super cool thread that the CEO of Slack posted yesterday from his Twitter account. And it's massively long. John, I don't know if you saw this all, but
no, I hadn't posted.
It's I think it's got to be 10 to 20 tweets strung together. Yeah. And it's basically been about his last 2 weeks, which was super cool to kind of see, how Slack, which is probably Slack and Zoom are probably the biggest beneficiaries of all of this as far as usage and new user. He really gets super candid and goes inside everything that went on over the last couple of weeks and how they've kind of made decisions and meeting with the board, and it's really interesting. So I'd recommend checking that out. But tools can really be helpful to connect, collaborate, stay productive. Jason, I'd actually like to ask you, tools are certainly a part of the playbook, but what are some ways to kind of, rally a remote sales team, make sure that the energy's there if they aren't necessarily in office? You brought up some great points with building relationships now during this empathy. What are some other kind of thoughts that you have on kind of bringing that all together?
Yeah, such a great question. I said this in a video the other day. This type of event that we're going through right now, this happens once every 10 years. You had the dot-com bubble burst in 9/11. You had the real estate meltdown of 2008. Now you got the pandemic of 2020. So while I have the platform, I cannot stress hard enough. If I could reach through the camera and grab everybody by the shirt collar, I would. What you do in the next 30 days is going to determine what your business looks like in 1 year. Do not waste this on too much Slack, which we've all done in the past, or messing around on Zoom with your colleagues when you should probably be doing it with a prospect or a customer who's about that close to pulling the plug because they're freaking out. So you've got to use your normal tools in terms of the phone and FaceTime and Zoom, etc. But what's been really eye-opening for me is LinkedIn, content creation. Everybody knows that they've pushed down reach on video in favor for text. But I've just now done 3 videos in a row that have gotten 50,000 views each. And I think the reason for that is when there's crisis, when people are freaking out, when shit's hitting the fan, you got to grab your phone and you got to go in front of the camera. I don't care what you have to say. You got to say something. Even if it's, well, I guess I'm freaking out too. Anybody who's got a business like you guys or myself, you've gotten slapped across the face. Come on out and tell everybody we're all in the same boat, right? We got a choice. We can cut tail and run, or we can face the music. So if you'll face the music and get out in front of a camera or get on a webinar or a podcast like this, or even just write something on your computer and make sure to engage with your audience, I'm telling you right now, just like what I went through in 9/11, when this thing goes away, anybody who's been actively out in front and rubbing elbows with prospects face to face, you know, through a window, FaceTime or on the phone, is going to be killing it in the second half of this year.
Yeah, and actually still in business.
Yeah, there
will be so many that are not, that those that stand out will be so much further ahead, and they'll there and they'll take all the business from those who twiddled their fingers and just stayed on these. I mean, on the LinkedIn, I've been noticing my LinkedIn engagements has been going a lot more there. There's so many more people on there. People aren't in these meetings. They're not doing this. They're sitting there just reading, seeing what other people are doing and not taking action.
And to John's point, millions of people right now are hooked. They're not just hooked on remote work. They're hooked on the social media engagement. We are coming together in a time of crisis, not just to solve problems that are going to be there in a month, but to connect as humanity, right? To get to know each other on a deeper level. The old saying goes, business is personal. So anybody that's just rolling up their sleeves right now, as many are, and they're engaging like crazy in the feed, or they're creating content like myself, I cannot say this enough. The market is telling us the worst is over. It's up 4,000 points in the last 2 days. We still got to get through this. New York, Seattle, etc. They've got a very tough time for the next 3 weeks. But don't miss this opportunity, because when Memorial Day comes around and everybody says, gee, that was fun. To John's point, we're probably going to have a third of restaurants and small businesses that have been wiped out and won't recover. But for those who are out in front right now, and admit it, if you're scared, if you got kids or parents, mine have passed. I said this the other day, if my dad was still here and he used to live with me for a time, I'd be scrubbing the floors. I'd be washing the walls. I'd be, Dad, you okay? That's what most people are going through. So reach out to them and figure out what it is that they're struggling with. And when it goes away and it settles down, I guarantee the check or the credit card's coming your way.
Yeah, I think those are, both really good points that you both made, both with the tool side, the just kind of capturing the moment side. At Cloud App, we quickly mobilized. We had a lot of remote content already indexed, but we quickly mobilized and have put out quite a bit more, including some hub pages with guides and other things. And those have exploded, 2, 3, 5x growth in being viewed. So the search traffic is crazy, like you said, Jason, people are hungry for the content and kind of learning how to adapt. So definitely take advantage of that and try and provide value. A lot of what's leading our motivation is we had customers that increased their license count, and we're Cloud App is going to be a huge foundational piece of this remote shift that we're dealing with. And so, our motivation, which shouldn't always be money, right, is hey, we have a big opportunity to really help people that are oh crap, I'm suddenly not in this office space I've been in for the last 20 years. How do I, connect with my colleagues, and how do I even use Zoom? I don't even know what Zoom is. So there's an opportunity to provide some value there.
And to your point, Joe, the value that you're providing is without a sales ask, right? We've all seen the webinar where you get people to sign up so you can get their email address, and then 25 minutes through a 30-minute webinar becomes a 5-minute sales pitch. Well, there's no sales pitch here.
No.
Calendar.com, everybody should know, if you do now anyway, what they do. And if not, you reach out after the video. This is all about adding value. When you're creating content or you're doing a webinar in a time of crisis, it's to build relationships. It's to build rapport. It's to, create the bond so that when everyone is comfortable in their own time to loosen up the purse strings, guess who they're coming to? They're coming to Cloud App, they're coming to Calendar, and they may come to remoteonline.com if they need.
They are. They are.
Definitely. So kind of thinking about some key takeaways. Definitely look to avoid distractions. I loved, Jason and John, you both pointed to having some structure, getting ready for the day, blocking out your calendars, looking for opportunities to have deep work. I liked, Jason, you mentioned going out on your patio for productivity breaks and kind of like finding something that feeds your soul. John made a really good point of getting out of the space you've been working in. That's a little challenge for me because like I'm working in my bedroom. So it's like, that's normally, a place for like relaxation. And now I'm like bringing work into it. So that's been a little crazy. But finding those spaces where you can escape for a little bit. And then lastly, kind of the tools and, playbooks to kind of manage a team have been really great. Are there any like passing thoughts that you guys want to bring in over the next, 5 minutes or so, and then we can see if there's any questions?
Yeah, I'd like to, if I could, please.
Yep.
I've talked about this a lot to some of my friends in the last few days. For all the leaders, whether you're in sales or not, it doesn't matter. If you do not have a remote work contingency plan, I'm talking about a playbook that's at least an inch thick, a website that's dedicated to what we're all going through right now. Testimonials, video testimonials from your employees. Hey, my boss, Bob, let me work from home in the middle of COVID-19 and we didn't miss a beat. We had this, we had that. We had our best month ever. If you don't have that in the next month or two, when top talent comes to your office to do an interview and they've got 2 young children that are 6 months and 2 years old, and when they say, I'm going to need to see your remote work contingency plan. So if shit hits the fan again, like it did with COVID, my wife and I are going to feel safe being able to work from home. So if it becomes we're working on that. Well, you know what? Nice to see you. Good luck. I'm out of here. So now is the time to gather all the data, get the wheels in motion in terms of building the assets, the playbook, because I'm telling you right now, if it's not going to be a pandemic, we're going to have a suitcase bomb nuke go off in the next 20 years. It's going to be a climate change event like what they went through in Australia with the wildfires. We have to be prepared because the world will never be the same.
Very good point. Thanks, Jason.
I'm up. I would just say, like, you guys, we're all in this together. And the more we help each other out, the more we communicate, not pretend like nothing's wrong, not pretend like this. Stop pretending, have real conversations. I've had more real conversations in the past 2 weeks than I've had in a while. Like, be real with people, explain what you're going through because they are going through it too. You might have different struggles. You might be able to help each other out. The world is good overall. There are some bad apples out there, but there are a lot of really good apples. And I think overall humanity is very, very good. And the more we can all help each other, I think the better the world will turn out, the quicker we'll get through this. But just be good to other people, help other people out, have those real conversations. It'll make you a better business owner, a better employee, a better person, a better human.
Yeah, I think so. Great angles that you guys are kind of taking with, closing kind of conversations. I think a piece of it is definitely like no one really likes to do documentation, to Jason's point, but this is definitely a time to like update your handbooks, create like your remote contingency plans, like what has sucked about this, what have we learned, what have we done good, what have we done bad. It's just like you would with like a product announcement or a bug, where you have some sort of post-mortem. After all this is done, maybe that's the time where you get together as a team or a company leadership and kind of have your like post-mortem on COVID, like what was really bad, what was really good, what could we have done better? And then that helps feed your playbook that you mentioned, Jason.
That's such a good point.
And then to John's point, just having that empathy, trying to find value, really looking for ways to connect to people. Jason and John, you both mentioned this, but like this has been kind of a pretty cool time in that like I've got text strings with my siblings and my parents, that we're talking more frequently and we're sharing information, and I'm like talking with old friends from, my childhood and like, exchanging, whether it's hey, are you guys doing okay? Or like a funny meme, that we saw from something that happened, connecting with coworkers in a different way. It's been a good opportunity for that. Okay, so I think we have a couple of questions. Let's see here. Let me open those up and see what we got.
Well, one that I'm seeing on there is besides the scavenger hunt, which by the way is a huge success. What can we do to help maintain team unity? I think just communicating with the team very, very openly. I think the scavenger hunt, I mean, I just literally got a thing while I was on here for a COVID press conference bingo. Like just that, again, I think it's more like just being part of your team, whether it be a large team or a small team or a little pod, just like constantly being there, checking in with people. Every single person on my team, I like sending an individualized message about every 2 days, like literally like every other day, like, how are you doing? Checking in. I hop on a quick phone call with them or a quick FaceTime or a quick Zoom or quick whatever their method is. Different people have different methods. Just like really staying a lot on top of that. And that's building more the team unity. But our biggest thing for team unity is doing these activities. We do one every other day. It's literally like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday, and then one random on the weekend, which has been a totally random one. But we did one last weekend and it was awesome. And it wasn't required. It's not this. It's just like doing things that we would normally do. But you got to get out. You got to have that team.
Yeah, I like that. One of the first things I did with my team was like I set up Monday, Wednesday, Friday stand-ups for the first week and a half.
Yeah.
And was like, hey, let's just connect as we're adjusting, 10 minutes. What's everyone working on? What are you hoping to accomplish today? Really helped kind of feed those other topics that we mentioned. Jason, I think I jumped in front of you. Were you going to say something?
Yeah, one thing that's really cool, I live in a community, probably 3 doors down, there's a couple of fitness fanatics. And I noticed the other day, there was a group of 10 people out jogging and they were 12 feet apart. So normally, right, you're all bunched up in a group. So I went to her the other day because I see her every day. They're all so far apart. And she's like, oh, we're doing that just to keep distance so nobody passes on, COVID to one another. So that's another cool idea where you can get out of the house, keep your distance, your social distance, right? And maybe take a walk or go for a jog with someone who's 10, 15 feet in front of you.
So that's a great idea. Thanks, Jason. We got another question in here that I think is really applicable to global teams. So what are thoughts on leading an international team, distributed, different cultures, different time zones? I can start with that. I'm not currently in that situation. We do have lots of people as a company spread across different time zones and countries and time and cultures. But I know when I was with Adobe and managing, people in India and APAC and Europe, as well as the US, it was very much team building stuff virtually. Like John mentioned, like finding ways to connect. Slack actually turned into a kind of a pretty fun spot where we do this at Cloud App as well, but we found things that we could connect on Slack. So March Madness was an example. This year it's canceled, but we did, March Madness brackets, even though half the team didn't know anything about college basketball. They usually won, by the way. And then like I've done book clubs, where people can drop in like, hey, I read chapter 2 of whatever book, and here's kind of some thoughts I wrote down. Creating activities to grow as a team, but then also trying to connect, on Zoom or async with a Cloud App type tool can be helpful and has been helpful for me in the past. What about you, John? What are your thoughts?
I mean, we have a book reading tonight at 9:30, and that's so teams in multiple time zones can actually participate and do that. It's to discuss a fun article that we read 2 nights ago. It was a book that a couple people are reading. I think with teams in different time zones, it is very hard. If there are individuals in those time zones, like one person, it's extremely difficult. If there's multiple people, I usually recommend that they go in pods in the same time zone or relative time zone. I think as a leader or a business leader or a manager of people, I manage a team in India. We have 9 different people in India. Just knowing a lot what's going on, I typically every single day before they come online, which is night my time and morning their time, I try and read the local news about what's gone on there in the past like 24 hours and then make comments on that. And then sometimes I'll even ask people, be like, hey, is there anything going on with other people on the team that not necessarily I should know about like in a negative way, but like that I can bring up to them, and I ask other people, and then it helps me be a little bit more informed. So for example, our manager there will be like, oh, this person is pregnant. This person, their cousin had this person, this. Just helps keep more of that one-on-one. And then again, these random like happy hours and stuff like that. You can find times as a leader, you might have to do it multiple times, like have a happy hour at 7 a.m., at 2 p.m. and at 8 p.m., but we all love that, so why not? But, find time to do a happy hour with the different teams in the different time zones, or do something to have that and, lead them. But I think part of leading is knowing what's going on with them and being there in the hard times, the good times.
I love the time zone buddy, the time zone buddy system. That's a great idea. I hadn't thought about. That's really smart. And I think, yeah, you may have to do it multiple times. You can always record those as well for people that just want to kind of casually see what's going on.
Yep.
Jason, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, great points, by the way, both of you. I think one-on-one times are huge right now. From the sales standpoint, there's a lot of pride and a lot of ego in the sales community. Everybody knows that. Some of the most successful tend to have, big personalities, but not always. And a lot of them are going to be uncomfortable getting really, really vulnerable in a group. So to John's point, I think the Zoom happy hours where we can all have a good time and, let our hair down, so to speak, if you have any, which I don't, are important. But I think this is where you're going to find out who the real leaders are. If you got to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, East Coast, to talk to somebody in India, then suck it up, because it needs to be done. You need to have one-on-ones and lead with some vulnerability. Hey, I was awful concerned last night when my wife broke down and she said X, Y, and Z. How are you doing? So if an employee or a sales rep sees the boss share a bit of very sensitive information that you otherwise wouldn't have shared, they're going to open up. And it's probably going to be on a one-on-one. So while I'm a huge fan of the Zoom happy hours, every leader, whether you're in sales or not, has really got to put in the extra time to reach out to everybody, be vulnerable, get real. There shouldn't be any bullshit or any curtains in the way. And when we come out of this, you might be amazed the kind of loyalty and commitment that the team has.
Really great. Well, that's all the time we've got. Jason, John, great points today. We'll be posting this on YouTube and also sending out the link to everyone that attended and also those who weren't able to make it. Hopefully the content today was valuable and provided you some playbooks and some help with what we're all kind of dealing with. Definitely follow John on Twitter and Jason on at Remote Online on Twitter and on both of them on LinkedIn. And yeah, thanks for coming and good luck to everyone. Hang in there.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Appreciate it.